There is a direct comparison between the Stasi prison and the Nazi concentration camp. The conditions of each institution, the treatment of their prisoners, and their reasoning for their actions have an eerie similarity. It has been questioned whether something like this could occur again. We believe that it has.
As we all know, Nazi camps were living nightmares. The prisoners suffered through horrid conditions, extreme malnutrition, extensive abuse from the Nazi guards, and forced labor that often ended in death. What you may not know is that the Stasi prisons consisted of poor living conditions too. In the case of Hohenschönhausen, 4,200 people were crammed in the small space of the prison. The prisoners had inadequate amounts of food and poor hygienic conditions that often led to illness and death. Between 1945 and 1946, 866 mortalities occurred.
Hohenschönhausen was a Stasi administration center and a special labor camp with an underground prison known for torture and terror. This part of Hohenschönhausen was closed after information was leaked to the Western press.
And this prison we visit today was secret and during the time of GDR. So nobody knew about this prison, and you only came to the gates of this closed district and you didn't know what is inside.
In 1961, additions to the prison were built by the forced labor workers of the previous prison. At this time, the Stasis conducted what was called interrogation custody. Interrogation custody concentrated on retrieving information from suspects of Western relations to justify the verdicts judicial courts would inflict.
Now, interrogators who worked here all had to study so-called operative psychology. Since the beginning of the 50s, the East German secret police collected all data about psychological methods of torturing and then teach those. This gained knowledge as operative psychology.
Prisoners were brought into Hohenschönhausen, stripped of their clothes, and given fatigues. No prisoners were to converse with each other. To ensure this would not happen, red lights were installed to traffic the prisoners. A prison cell consisted of a bed and latrine with no view of the outside world.
My ex-girlfriend had a teacher when she was in school, and this guy had tried to actually help people escape over the wall. He'd been arrested by the Stasi and then imprisoned for 3 years in solitary confinement in a very, very small cell somewhere in East Germany. Now, his only access to the outside world was a small central chamber that had a small window in the roof that you could see the sky through over that 3-year period. He was interrogated very, very extensively in a terribly cliche, but by a kind of good cop, bad cop. So you had the Nazi piece of work with the probably a ratty moustache and a bad pair of glasses. And then the good cop, and this is the freaky bit, was modelled on his father, dressed like his father, spoke like his father, so that he would engender some kind of level of trust with him and therefore divulge his secrets more quickly.
During interrogations, psychological methods were researched and used on the prisoners. They used corner-to-corner interrogation rooms, purposefully located on the second floor that overlooked the edge of the prison, to reveal the outside world. The Stasi would stare at the suspects, saying things like, "I have plenty of time, and I have nothing but time." This was a tactic to create a sense of apprehensiveness.
You might wonder what kind of people ended up in the Stasi prisons.
Said that also my mother spent time within one of those cells here in this prison in 1988. This is one of the reasons I work in this memorial here. So she was a member of the East German oppositional movement since the beginning of the 80s.
Though the Nazi concentration camp victims were liberated after World War II, and the Stasi prisoners were released when the Berlin Wall came down, the battle of unjustified persecution still goes on.
They were sitting on their knees with their hands in their neck, and they were just lined up, hundreds of men. Yes.
Bosnian Muslims were hopelessly outgunned. As the Serbs gained ground, they began to systematically round up local Muslims in scenes eerily similar to those that occurred under the Nazis during World War II, including mass shootings, forced repopulation of entire towns, and confinement in makeshift concentration camps.
On July 11, 1995, 5 days after Saliha Osmanovic's son was killed, the Muslim town of Srebrenica in eastern Bosnia fell to the Bosnian Serb army. The world's first United Nations safe area became the site of the worst massacre in Europe since World War II.
The actions of the Serbs were labeled as ethnic cleansings, a name which quickly took hold among the international media.
These persecutors of innocent people are often written off as mentally unstable. We'd all like to think that. But in reality, we're all made up of the same materials, and it is human nature to abuse power. This is a terrifying truth that no one wants to face.
That being said, is it possible that these events in history could repeat themselves?